Is it just a recording, right?
There it goes. Yeah, yeah, and then we'll edit it a little bit. That's good. That's good. Right there. Right there. Thank you so much.
Fan, vill du kanske lägga min väska på den?
Testing.
Alltså bara min väska.
Testing.
Fan vad stört.
Testing. Testing.
Oh my god.
Britta, okay with you. I'll introduce you all. Please hand you this one. Okay.
Testing. Hi everyone, come on in. Take a seat right up front. I sound like a carnival host. All right, let's start. Who's in the room is meant to be here. I say that all the time. Hello everyone, happy week 6, Tuesday at Berkeley College. If you're not from our campus, it's week 6 of our 15-week spring semester. And we have a real treat for you today. So thank you so much. Hello, everyone. So as you know, students are here. We have a monthly Berkeley Fashion Forum where we have a panel and you get to ask all the questions. And I'm really excited about today's panel because today's panel is on a topic very close to my heart on storytelling for sustainability in fashion. And storytelling is so important. It brings community when you tell a story, right? People lean in, you're closer to them, you know their story. And it's also a way of communication. And I think we're focusing more on the communication than the communion and the community today, but it becomes the communion and the community when you are communicating together and sharing your stories. And so I generally start storytelling panels with asking our speakers to briefly share their own stories and how they got involved in sustainability and cared about it. So maybe you could think about doing that with your introduction if you'd like and tell us your story. I can tell you quickly that I got interested and passionate about sustainability when I was working in Hong Kong 15 years ago. And my fabric came in 3,000 yards of purple eggplant, it was called, wool gauze from Italy, and it was 10% off the color standard. And I said, nope, dyed again. I thought it was just a lab dip. What I did not know was the 3,000 yards was already dyed. And they said, okay. The next day I got a new lab dip with the message that they were very upset with me at the mill. And I said, why are they so upset? I only just said no to the lab dip. And they said they had already dyed the yardage. And I was like, holy crap, what? That was $18.50 a meter. So, and I said, well, I'll use it. And I got someone at a very big department store to agree to use it. We decided we would split an ad and the cost of having it on New York Times, doing Facebook ads, etc. And we did a custom order for it. All within one day this agreement was made. And then I said I put in the cutting ticket to the factory and they said, within an hour, your fabric is gone. And I said, what do you mean it's gone? Where is it? And they said, it's gone. And I said, well, where did it go? What I found is it went to an incinerator. And so that's when I learned that the practices that I learned in college and at some very high-end companies here in New York is that the design decisions we make in our everyday jobs are really creating the air pollution and the water pollution and the social injustices and the climate injustices we always hear about. And I dedicated to changing my work from that point on to infuse social and environmental practices. So that's my story. So I think that when we share stories, it's important if you could each talk and share your story. And I'm sorry, so without further ado, I'm so thrilled, and I'll get the slides up as you start, to welcome Siamanda Chege, Michael J. Jordan, and Britta Cabanos, who will each tell you all about their stories, and then take notes because you'll be sitting up here and asking questions in about 20 minutes or so. So without further ado, thank you so much. I'll pull up the slides, and I'm gonna take it away, Siamanda.
Hello everyone. That was beautiful. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I love your sustainable story. I love beautiful stories. My name is Siamanda Chege, as you heard, and I am the founder of Baby Ravi and Chege Orphanage. my sustainable story is more creating sustainable jobs for artisan or women in Africa in fashion. So what I did, my backstory is like I grew up in Kenya, and I come from a village of people who call them Maasai people. I'm one of 9 children, and I was very fortunate as a young woman that my father was able to send me to America to go for further studies. I come from a tribe where women don't really go to school. You're born to be a wife, or that's because that's what we do. My father did convert to Christianity at an early age, so it was important for them to send me to school. And so I was very lucky. I came here, went to school, but unfortunately, in between my schooling, my father got very ill. I was one of 9 children, and I had ended up having to support my family back home. I have 8 siblings, 7 of them being girls, and I wanted to make sure that they would not end up having to be wives or having to get married just because that's the only thing they could have done. So I ended up in fashion, and I was very lucky. I got recruited as a fashion model. That's many years ago. I'm not because I'm now, but that was many years ago. That's many years ago. And I worked in fashion and supported my family, which has ended up really well. My siblings are doing very well. My mother is well. My father did pass away at an early age. But what happened is after a decade of that, I ended up getting married, having children, and when I went back to Kenya to introduce my daughter to my family and to my people, I realized that I had just been so blessed. The people that I left, my fellow women, the women that I had grown up with, were really struggling. It was just by the grace of God that I was here. Now I was a mother, I was a young mother, I had a child. Then there was a huge devastation of HIV/AIDS. And there were all these single mothers that were struggling. There were all these orphans, there were these children who didn't have someone to take care of them. And I knew for sure I would never be this. I had to do something. I had to make a change. I had to make a difference. And the first thing that came to mind was helping the babies, the little ones. So I started with the orphanage, which is the Chege village, it's a home for kids who orphans were 8. But then the thing was, we had kids who were coming in to the feeding program that had mothers, and they were not orphans, so they didn't fall under the orphanage category. And my thought was, what do we do? So there's where my sustainability story comes in. It's like, why not create a sustainable jobs for the mothers so that they can feed their children? Now, I know these women. I grew up in these villages. I knew what they're good at. I grew up, my mother needed those sweaters. I knew how good their artisanal work. And then I had worked in fashion, so I leveraged that and created the Verifiable collection, which is a social enterprise. Most of you know what that is. It is a for-profit business in between. It's a for-profit business with a social component to it, which is like doing good, making a difference, we're doing well. Whereas Chege Orphanage is a foundation, it's a 501c3, where the kids, they can't work, but the women need, they can work. So that's my sustainable story. So Chege Baby Ravi is a social enterprise. We work with designers. I see one of my awesome designers here, who support us in creating jobs for the women in the village. And that's my sustainable story, and I have many examples later. I will just show you now the slides, just to have an idea of what I do. So that's my logo, that's Baby Ravi. This is a group of women that we work with. They get really excited when we go, and they always have a dance for us. We do lots of artisanal work, so that's beading. I'm from the Maasai tribe, as I told you, so this is a lot of bead work. We also have women who do sewing and crochet and hand knitting. On the very end is me collaborating and talking to designers at Oscar de la Renta, as we were doing their collection for a couple years ago, as we're picking colors and designs. This is some of the styles we've made. This is a children's collection. on the very end. I was an Oscar de la Renta. The second one is a designer from Seattle called Queen Organics. And the middle one is actually a Baby Ravi brand that we sell. That in this collection, you see knits. The end is crochet, knitted, and it's all hand knitted. This is a story that I think the storytellers will go back to. This is one of the most amazing women who's worked for us for over 20 years. Well, for as long as we've started, has put about 13 children through school, has been with us the longest. These are women as well. I think this is okay. And so these are some more examples of what we do. That's a menswear we did for Browns. Again, we work with designers. We have our own brand, but we also do private label. This is another, just our women are amazing. That's what they do. This was a runway collection that we just did last year for Adam Lippe. This is all this is all crochet pieces, hundreds and hundreds of pieces by different women, and it's all put together to tell the story. And also we do home wear as well. And that is my story. So we're like passing on to the next, the storytellers. I'm just an example. Sure.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm the one member of the panel whose background is not in fashion, nor in sustainability, but I've evolved into it. My background actually is as a journalist. I was a foreign correspondent for 20 years, mostly in Central and Eastern Europe, and then in Central Asia, and I lived in Africa, Southern Africa for 4 years, and in China for 5 years. And so over the years, I evolved from being a journalist to visiting professor of international journalism. And once we moved, I followed my wife, my then wife and children to Southern Africa, specifically to the tiny African kingdom of Lesotho. And it was there that I saw how dramatic the health crisis was in Lesotho. Lesotho suffers from the world's second highest rate of HIV infection. So then I began to apply all my international journalism skills, strategies, and storytelling styles to health communications, HIV communications. And then over the years, more recently, I guess I could get to some of the slides. Thank you very much, Siamanda. And then over the years, more recently, then when I lived in China, then I applied those skills to environmental protection. So environmental communications, I did consultations and consultancies in food waste and workers' rights. And then finally, when I fled Beijing during COVID back in 2020, and from here in New York, I began to look at what are some of the needs in communications and in storytelling. And I saw that almost every organization, every company, every nonprofit faces some sort of pressure to prove something, to prove results, to prove impact, especially with growing demand from consumers like you who want to see who want to know that your products are being produced in, if a company claims to be producing conscious fashion or ethical fashion, sustainable fashion, vegan fashion, the idea of how to prove those things. Okay, we've heard Siamanda's inspiring story, right? And in just a second, I will grill her a little bit as to how to prove it, okay? It's not that we're taking an approach that's not that we don't believe, but recognizing that she, as a company owner, as a fashion enterprise owner, even as an orphanage founder, has a strong self-interest in proving these things in order to attract more investors, okay? To overcome skepticism, if not suspicion that what she's saying is true or not. So let me start with this slide. I'll try to be as quick as possible. The way I describe it, hold on a second. Okay, the way I describe this is that nowadays we are swimming in a sea of brands, okay? Even worse than that, as you know, I won't get political here, but you see what's going on in the world today in terms of all the misinformation, disinformation, fake news, propaganda that's swirling around us, okay? It's dizzying, it's confusing, how to identify what is real, what is not real, okay? So it's now, yes.
Just tell me
I got it, you're right, thank you. So then I identified this, well, I came up with this definition. Strategic storytelling, it's not just sustainability storytelling, but specifically strategic storytelling is what I call it when I'm advising clients and non-for-profits. And I came up with a definition, which is it's not just any form of storytelling, but storytelling for a purpose, okay? That whenever that we have a strategic objective, which is, in this case, to prove if we're under pressure from donors, from investors, from watchdog organizations, from the media, from consumers, customers, that sort of thing, then strategic storytelling is to be able to prove persuasively, and as I say in that last line, a key component to overcome our audience's skepticism is concrete, credible, verifiable evidence presented transparently, okay? Because, going back to this slide for just a second, one thing I've learned, I've been fortunate enough to have lived on 4 continents. And one thing I've found that is unique, that unites us all, okay? It's not that Americans are particularly prone to fake news and misinformation, disinformation. It's a phenomenon around the world, okay? And what I've noticed from those experiences is that there are generally 2 kinds of audiences in the world. One, with all due respect, are more sheep-like, okay? They're following blindly. If you say, hey, this phone, this iPhone, is the best phone in the world, if you go to some corner that says New York's best pizza, you need to tell your friend, hey, you want New York's best pizza? Let's go to this corner place. What's their evidence? I mean, just even looking at that skeptically, what's their evidence that they are the best, okay? New York's #1 pizza, that sort of thing. So, recognizing that some people are all too willing to follow blindly, unthinkingly, okay? And those people can be duped, okay? Companies, as you know, can trick them. And greenwashing is a serious phenomenon of companies throwing money at the problem without real results, real impact. They're not growing roots, they're just trying to blind us with the money that they invest. Then there's a second audience, the critical thinkers, okay? I have an image of the thinker. The critical thinkers who are going to demand that we prove whatever we say, whatever claim that we make, okay? Siamanda is claiming social impact. Sounds wonderful, okay? But if you expect me to reach into my pocket and to donate to the village, first of all, how do I know that she really has a village? Okay? I'm just looking skeptically, okay? That's the way we all need to be. I mean, later this afternoon, you may get emails, okay, saying, will you support this sick person in the hospital? And it touches our hearts, right? And we may be duped, okay? We may be tricked, that sort of thing. So the onus should be on the content creators to prove that what we say is true, okay? So, then I've come up with a method to do that, okay? Which is, as I said, a concrete, credible, verifiable evidence, which I always say, one of my best friends now is the hyperlink. Whenever I create content, I always include lots of hyperlinks to the original source, okay? To my evidence, because I have respect for my audience. That's the main difference between the sheep out there and the critical thinkers, is those who are trying to persuade the sheep don't have respect for the intellect of the audience, okay? But I have respect for my audience. I see them as a certain elite audience. If they are donors, investors, if they are watchdog organizations, that sort of thing, okay? And by the way, you see the last line. Not only am I now focusing on sustainability storytelling, but I've applied it to many other, what I think are cutting edge fields. ESG storytelling, right? Companies are under pressure to prove their environmental social governance. Or DEI storytelling. I did a training last April, 2-day workshop for JP Morgan, which is investing billions in what they say, black and brown communities, right? And they can throw money at it. They can say online, we're doing wonderful things for black and brown communities, but where's the evidence to prove that it's really making a difference, okay? That's growing roots and actually lifting up those communities they claim to want to lift up, okay? Also, SDGs. I don't know if you're familiar with SDGs, but the UN advocates for Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So I also call it SDG storytelling. Any organization that claims to be supporting women, water, environment, workers, whatever it is, I just say prove your impact, prove your results, okay? The onus is on yours. I'm not gonna believe you, all right? So, you know, let me quickly jump to one case study, okay? I have lots I could talk about, but this is not a class, okay? I want to tell you about this story, about how I learned my methodology, because while living in Southern Africa, this is a photo from Lesotho. It's high in the mountains of Southern Africa. In fact, Lesotho is the only skiing in Africa, okay? So, back in 2014, actually exactly 10 years ago, early 2015, an American NGO, a nonprofit, said, Michael, we have a 5-year program for HIV orphans and caregivers, okay? The 5-year program is about to expire. We would like another 5-year grant. And guess what? The donors need evidence for us to prove that we've actually made a significant impact on the lives of HIV orphans and caregivers. It's a very fair question to ask. It's like, don't just tell us, but show us that you really made a difference. So they hired me to go off into the mountains, 2 one-week trips that I took, where I had to interview and photograph 24 HIV orphans and caregivers. Here was one of the women I interviewed and photographed. Okay? I'll try to be quick about this. This woman had already given birth to 3 children, 3 healthy children, okay? But her husband had become infected by HIV. We don't need to get into how that happened, but then he had infected her with HIV, okay? But they loved their children and they wanted to have a 4th child, all right? So they wanted, what she wanted was, I want to have a 4th child, but a healthy child, okay? One of the most common forms of HIV transmission is mother to child, okay, to the unborn child, and the children are born with HIV. She wanted to avoid that, okay? And she's living in a small village in the mountains, and this organization, this NGO, MSH, had sent nurses and up to health clinics, and they were rounding up women. They said, hey, we can, if you come down to the clinic, we can show you how, if you're pregnant, if you want to get pregnant, we can show you how to give birth. Even if you're HIV positive, how to give birth to an HIV negative baby, okay? So she faced a choice. She could have listened to what the Western nurses and the clinics had to say, or she could have ignored them and said, I don't believe them. There's a tradition of local witch doctors, that's what they call them, where they would advocate different herbs and medicines, that sort of thing. Trust us versus trusting the outsiders, okay? So what I realized, I came up with an interviewing and storytelling strategy that I call the fork in the road, okay? Where I began to, with all these interviews, you see at the bottom of this fork, I began asking them questions about what their life was like now and before. It's simply, the strategy is the before and after effect, okay? What their lives were like before, what her life was like before. I'm then writing down, I'm drawing it out of her, okay? Respectfully, politely. Then she's living her life. You see the green arrow, okay? And then there's a knock on the door. This is what I call the knock on the door. She hears that there's a clinic and that there's going to be trainings for women like her, okay? There's a fork in the road. She could decide to go to the left and ignore them. And then I say, what if you hadn't gone to the clinic? Oh, then I probably would have given birth to an HIV positive baby who would have to be on the antiretroviral treatments, on meds the rest of their lives, okay? Or instead, why did you listen to that knock on the door? Why did you decide to go to the clinic? Then she explains. She went to the clinic, and then step by step, there's now impact. There's an intervention leading to impact, and I'm asking her, and then what happened? Then what happened? Then what happened, okay? And then, in the end, she gave birth to an HIV negative baby. So that is evidence of impact, evidence of the organization's impact. They intervened and they helped deliver a healthy baby, okay? So then you stitch together all these stories, okay? If it's a fashion, I don't know how many of you hope to create your own companies, have your own ambitions, okay? But if you're gonna be saying, our products are organic and conscious and ethical, okay? Then you're going to want to also produce stories to prove, actually, that with evidence-driven stories to prove that sort of thing. So with Siamanda's story, okay? Could you go back to Cecilia? Well, let me ask you. Oh, with Britta. Okay.
Did you want to?
Well, how about taking too much time?
We don't have much time.
Okay. Oh,
It's amazing. Yeah, their stories are so inspiring to me. So my name's Britta Cabanos. I'm excited to see the Argentinian group back again. I didn't realize you guys were coming here, so I'm glad you're here again and happy to meet all of you as students. I don't know if any of you were students last fall during New York Fashion Week. I recognize a couple faces. I have Inside Fashion Design, and we threw a gathering at the Delaney, and some of you were volunteers. So thank you for that, and you may have met these two incredible people if you were there. They were both there. So my story is a little more traditional. I'm a graduate of FIT. I wanted to be a designer. I've been designing and working in the industry for 30 years now. I've worked from mass market to designer to athletic apparel, so I feel I have a broad sense of the different markets and how people produce things. Mass market obviously being very damaging, as we know now. Back in the day, I would go to the factories and see buckets and buckets and buckets full of contaminated chemical dye water running down the street in Taipei, and they were just putting it into their river. At the time, sustainability wasn't a thing, so it was just kind of, oh, that's the normal thing to do. So obviously now that's a huge concern, and there's been positive steps, but there's a lot more we need to do. So I won't go through all my design jobs, but in 2017, I launched Inside Fashion Design as an online platform to start telling stories. I just had a passion for sharing advice, finding an ethical maker like Siamanda, and having a place for them to share those stories online. I'm not a journalist or a trained storyteller, but as a designer, when you start working in the industry, most often your company will have you go and present to the buyers. I used to go to Kohl's all the time. I'd go to Macy's, I'd go to Nike, and they would just pass it off to the design. Like, you have a sales team there. So you would think the salespeople would be the main ones talking. But no, they would very often, I'm sure they still do, is leave it up to the designer. And we're not trained storytellers, but you might have your theme, you might have your inspiration for the season, you have your pretty mood boards. You would go in there and explain to the buyer, okay, the trend is this, and that's why I designed these styles. But that was kind of it. There wasn't a purpose behind it. There wasn't a deeper story. So I feel like that's something that's always missing, that now is even so important, because for someone to buy new inventory, there has to be a reason for it. What is the purpose of the product? You can't just, unfortunately it still happens, you just mass produce things and people are just filling, Walmarts and Targets, and but if you can go in and have a purpose and vision and a value of some kind to product that you're producing, that's just going to elevate it to the next level, and you're going to make it a slow fashion, you're going to produce it differently. It'll have a different meaning behind that. So super important, I think, just to understand product that you're working with, and what is the reason for it, and what are the sustainability processes you're going through to produce those. So I'll just jump really quickly ahead. So at the event in the fall, at the Delaney, it was kind of a party, and we had some speakers, and Siamanda was one of them. And I had just met Michael that night, And afterwards on social media, you know, people were posting pictures and oh, it was a great time and there was great speakers and all that. And then I think it was through LinkedIn, Michael replied to one of the posts and he said, okay, those are all great stories and those were all great speakers, but how do we know what they're doing? Are they really doing it? And how do you prove that? So I saw that and I replied and I said, you know, that's a good question. Because I'm posting blog stories, interviewing makers, putting it on my website, and I'm just trusting them. You know, they're telling me this is how they do it. They say it's transparency. You know, this is who's making it, but, you know, do we really know and how do we really know? So I was very excited to connect with Michael further and for my own business, understand how can I gather that data or how can I prove it for my own work. So that's brought us together here today, and I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. I hope you do. So should we open
Excellent.
it for-
So thank you so much, Britta, Michael, and Siamanda. So I know you are ready to ask questions, and we won't have the full 40 minutes to ask questions, but we certainly have about 25. So I know that you all know the drill, and if you don't, when you want to come up for a question, you sit up here, you introduce yourself, and you ask the speakers your question. And so get ready. Who wants to ask the first question? Anyone? Woo! Professor Brown.
Hi, everybody. Hi, nice to meet you all. For those who don't know me, I know we have some students here visiting. I'm Professor Brown. I work with Professor Kennedy, and I have some of my amazing Intro to Fashion students who are going to also ask some questions. But I wanted to kick it off. So this is to all three of you, so Siamanda, Michael, and Britta. So it's a kind of a layered question. With the changes politically, with DEI, traceability, and climate change, how is it affecting your specific facets of the industry?
I'll start
Okay.
because mine is the easiest. I work with women in Africa, and I work with very high-end fashion and with very consumers who are very aware of what they're buying. So this is not affecting us for now. Let's hope it stays that way.
I got this. You want something?
I would say I'm looking at it from a little different perspective because it's my own business, so I can pretty much do what I want. So I will always remain, you know, completely open to, you know, every story, and so for me personally, I'm not gonna change because of that. So.
I would say I'm not that concerned, actually, about what our new administration is up to, because I mean, even if you're to gauge yourself, if you're someone who cares about how your products are made, how your clothes are made, suddenly because Trump does something, you're going to care less about how it's made. I think, as they say, that horse is out of the barn. People already care. It's already an upward trend, and not just consumers, customers care, but investors care, donors care, and so maybe companies and organizations may change the name, but they're going to still care about inclusion in some form. Maybe, you know, the other side successfully demonizes DEI, the phrase itself, but I don't think that all these programs, I think they'll take new forms, and I still think there'll be a need to prove that you're still doing those sorts of things, you know, whether it's to hire, if you want to work for an organization that cares about these things, you're still going to demand that they be transparent about whether they truly care versus, oh no, we don't care about those things anymore.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna have some students from my class start. So Limia, would you like to come up?
Hi, my name is Andrea. I'm UAE. Sorry, my question is for you, Siamanda. What sustainable practices do you guys have at UAE that differentiates you from traditional fashion brands?
So how do we differentiate ourselves? First of all, ethical maker. So we're saying we're working with these women, we're creating jobs for fair trade, fair wages, working conditions, but we also are very, very careful with our raw material suppliers. So wherever we're getting our yarns, we're looking for certifications on how they source the yarn. So what certifications that they have. So that's kind of what stands out. So ethical making and also sustainable material that we can either upcycle, recycle, or reuse.
Can I just jump in, and I want to say something about Siamanda and her brand. She has a couple pieces here to show you that you can truly see they're all handmade, and it's definitely slow fashion. It's not a huge factory producing a number of things. So maybe at some point we can pass those around or hold them up, and you can really get an idea of the product that she's making. It's like when your grandmother knits you a sweater, like it's just filled with love, and you wear it, and it's gonna last 30 years, and you'll always know like that was handmade by this special someone. And so I believe Siamanda's work, it proves it because you can see it in the product.
Hi to everyone. I'm Candy. I'm the head of fashion programs. Sorry, I'm too short. I'm the head of fashion programs in the university. These are my students, so thank you so much for this moment. And I have a question for you, Siamanda. I want to know what is the limit when you are working with artisans and the designs don't become cultural appropriation? What is the line?
Yeah, that's a good question. Kind of where there's a designer here with us who can actually answer that question. So I come from the school of so first of all, my vision is to create as many jobs for the women in Africa, right? So our artisans, like, what they do best, to give them, to use their skills to produce what we need, right? I do not work directly with local fabrics, so our product is not sold in Africa. Our product, we work with very, very high-end designers who actually sell abroad. And so I don't have, my line doesn't have, for example, a lemlem, which is more like an Ethiopian fabric. I don't have that. My yarns are coming from Italy. Yes. My designs are coming from New York. I'm more global. I'm sort of like a high-end kind of global brand. Artisanal work. If we work with the Masa, we're coming up with now a Siamanda line, and we're going to use a lot of local fabrics with the Masai colors and maybe local fabrics. For me, I don't see it as a local appropriation. I feel like, you love my culture so much, you want to show it off, let's go. I'm fine with it. It does not bother me at all that they do that, except when you call it yours, when it's really not yours. When I'm designing, it's made in Italy, yeah, but give credit to where it belongs. So, even with our product, we always, it has a tag, who made this product? It's the artisans and their stories. So I think we feel cultural appropriation if they were to accredit the Native Americans or whoever it is that they're bringing, they're taking that art, that artisanal work from. I think then everybody will be okay. That's how I feel. I could be wrong, but that's how I feel.
Okay, thank you so much.
Britta might think differently.
Anyone?
May, would you like to go?
Hi, my name is Salome, and I'm from Denmark. And my question is for you, Michael. Why is it so important for fashion brands to communicate their commitment to sustainability in their work?
Well, as I've learned, the fashion industry itself is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's actually one of the greatest exploiters of resources and wasters of resources. I don't know if you've seen some of these stories and images of mountains of wasted clothing in Africa, that sort of thing. So that's why it's a great question. Why does fashion matter? Among all the industries, It's one of the largest, one of the greatest employers. Everyone buys something. They need something on their back, on their feet, that sort of thing. So I think it's just a question of its importance, but in terms of positive and negative. And so if we recognize it as a major industry, then it's important to keep our eyes on it and to demand that they prove that what they say is in fact the case, that they back up their claims. So are you yourself interested in creating your own brand?
I don't think so.
Uh-huh. But just the idea, whatever you intend to do once you graduate, right? This idea, and I think it's important for all of us, okay? Let's say with LinkedIn, all right? That all of us are gonna make some claim about what we're doing today in terms of employment, right? But with so many scammers out there, including on LinkedIn, that we all have the challenge of how to prove we are who we say we are, to prove that we're doing what we claim we're doing, but especially to prove that we are as good as we claim to be, okay? Because anyone can be lying. So it's for individuals, it's for companies, that sort of thing, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Andrea?
Hi, my name is Amelia. I'm from Sweden. So my question is also for you, Michael. Which sustainable storytelling consulting assignment has been most exciting and educational for your company?
Vis-a-vis sustainability specifically? That's a good question. Not to give credit to Britta over here, but I know that she happens to be on the front lines of sustainability, conscious fashion education, okay? So I myself only actually it was attending that event that got me into specifically fashion sustainability, okay? And so just the idea that for her to recognize and appreciate, and then even talking about some sort of workshops and courses, so to impact her influence on other young fashion designers and brands has been pretty gratifying so far. Yes, that sort of thing. But just in general, in terms of working with, I've done much more with SDG storytelling, Sustainable Development Goal storytelling, to help nonprofits. So I'm working now with 3 African nonprofits as Global Communications Advisor, including Siamanda Social Enterprise that we met before today. So just the idea of helping them prove, because recognizing that if you want, it's one thing to persuade us, we're all nodding our heads saying, that's wonderful work that they do. It's another thing saying, now will you give? Okay, will you actually invest? Then how to lower that risk of, okay, can you trust me or not? How to lower the risk of distrust and build a bridge of trust, that sort of thing. So yes, I do find all those assignments gratifying. Thank you.
I'm Mariella. I'm from Japan and I'm studying fashion business. And I have a question for Siamanda. What are some of the biggest challenges in promoting sustainable fashion, and how do you overcome it?
That's a good question. So one of our biggest challenges is that sustainable fashion is also slow fashion. So it's not possible to, the turnaround is quite much longer. It's not like, give me 10,000 pieces like next week, or like if you want 10,000 pieces, it's gonna be about 6 months. That's usually hard because the fashion industry is moving very fast, especially with fast fashion. And also it gets a little bit pricier as you do slow fashion, because when you're looking into working with the best quality material, with sustainable material, also paying your workers fairly, and also working in Africa. So there's a lot of moving parts. If the cost is a little bit higher than fast fashion, that goes out fast. And so I think the biggest challenge is explaining to the consumer or the buyer that you know what, this product is not only is so fashion is sustainable, but it actually is giving back to so much more than, it's giving back. It's creating jobs for people, for women. It's good for environment. It's long lasting in terms of effect, and just proving why slow fashion is better than fast fashion. So yeah, like that's usually the hard part, especially with the world that wants to move faster. Like I want the turnaround to be tomorrow. I want it to be done today. So that's usually the hardest part. But there's a huge movement right now in fashion, I believe, that is the consumer being aware, and everybody's asking who made my clothes? Who is the person paid fairly? And how longer? I have teenage daughters, and we talk about the $5 piece that you have to buy over and over again. You add it, like I put in the washer, and then it shrinks to a size 0, and then tomorrow you have to buy a new pair. What if you bought something that's a little bit more expensive, it's slow fashion, that has a story behind it that tells it, that's going to last longer. So that is the challenge. So the storytelling part, the impact storytelling, is very important for us in that sense, so because we have to tell the story and sell the story. They're not just buying the product, they need to hear the story as well. That's a good question.
Hello, my name is Diani. I'm here studying fashion and business management. And my question is for you. You kind of answered my first one. My first one was, what's your sustainability goals for the next 5 years? And, sorry. Oh, and what brands do you see yourself maybe working with in the future? Any collabs or any brands that you would like to work with? Oh my goodness. Okay.
Wow, so I just had a wonderful partnership with Parsons School of Design last fall semester. And I had this MPS program students that came up with some serious business plan and marketing strategies. And one of the biggest takeaways was like, Siamanda, we're doing Siamanda this year. Like, so I've done a lot of private labor because it was easier for me to do that. And so I think I'm going to really concentrate on actually building my own brand this year. And also really looking to work with those sustainable fashions. Like I say, Miss Kahindo over here is one of the biggest sustainable designers. I'm sorry, she showed up. I'm wearing her. So I think just really looking for people, for designers who really are doing what they're doing, but also including a lot of storytelling of everything that we do. And like Michael and Britta are doing with me, is sharing the story widely. Like just, for us to make a difference in fashion, we have to tell the stories. And it starts with, us consumers. It's not the designers, it's not because it's a designer, it's a brand owner, it's all about the bottom line. The people up there, they just want to make the money. And they will continue doing that and will continue buying their cheap, the stuff that comes fast. But if we as a consumer decide to ask those questions or tell those stories, I think we're going to make a difference. So I think this year I'm going to concentrate way more on telling the stories and asking and teaching, talking a lot more about, let's figure out where a product, who's making our clothes. That's my whole 2025 plan. Did I answer it?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
May I add one thing, one objective I have for her next 5 years too? Is that since her objective, one of her other objectives is social impact on the women whom she employs. And what does that mean? That means that these women are now able to properly feed them and clothe their own children, buying them shoes and school bags, school uniforms. Many of these women had to leave their children at home because they couldn't afford to send them to school, right? But also to help her prove the social impact and breaking a cycle of poverty, that maybe what she's doing is then a model, could be a model for other countries, could be applicable. But only if you can prove that it works. Okay, not just, yeah, we're helping all these women, isn't it wonderful? No, but to truly become a model means it's a higher level of evidence of proving it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we just, I know that we're almost out of time. We have Shania with a question, and then I think Amal, and maybe one other student. Oh, okay. So we really have time just for 3 more questions. What counts? Okay. Class schedule.
My name is Shania. I'm from Sri Lanka. Before I ask a question, I want to give a little bit about me. I wanted to be a fashion designer and own my own brand and go back to Sri Lanka. And then combine my brand with adoption center for stray dogs and cats. So you inspire me a lot. I have a question. I have a question for each one of you. My plan A was to be a designer, and the plan B was to be a respected journalist. So my question is, what are 3 things you love about what you're doing, and what inspires you to keep going?
Wow, I love that question. I have to pick 3. What inspires me? I think as a designer, I'm a creative, and I'm constantly being inspired by just even walking around the city, architecture, and all those things. So I don't ever feel like I have a lack of inspiration. But what is inspiring me now in my work is the story. And in my alter ego life, I think I was a journalist because I just love doing the research. I love being introduced to a small brand. You know, somebody connected me with Siamanda several years ago, and when I heard her story, it just, I don't know, that excited me so much. So when I'm thinking about a story that I want to share or find, like I'm constantly looking for a small brand that has some story behind it so that I can share that and pass it on to the world. And part of the goal is for them to get the exposure so that consumers and users are connecting with them. Like it might be such a small brand, they've never heard of it, but if I can post something about it or share a story behind it and get somebody to visit their shop or their website or to reach out, like to me I've accomplished something. So that's kind of my vision and goal, and I'm constantly motivated to do more because I'm continually inspired by brands and stories, and so I don't have a lack of things to talk about for sure. So I hope that answered your question.
I would say one thing that inspires me is what I enjoy about this process is that it's also a form of media literacy. I think we all need to sharpen our media literacy skills in terms of how we consume all the news and information around us. And so the way I see the work that I do, what excites me is that I'm applying journalistic skills, but also skills of a detective. Something took place here, okay? And so how to collect enough evidence to prove my case, then it becomes detective work, even like to making lawyerly arguments, okay? Especially when we're talking about donors and investors who have very high standards for you must prove to me to lower this risk for me to invest or to donate. So then the combination of the detective work, the lawyerly arguments and all that, I find to be an enjoyable endeavor, but also sharing these skills. I mean, I myself have 3 kids, so I want my own children to have these skills to survive. We all need these media literacy skills to survive, especially in this era, okay, right? So that's why I enjoy the whole process of how to unearth and illuminate evidence.
Well, mine, I've shared over and over. It's all 3-1. I'm so passionate about making a difference, whether it's with the orphans or the women. Every time I go home, every time I hear stories of these women, for every lives, every part of their lives that we've touched in, whatever we do, it always gets goosebumps. So I was like, I really am so thankful to be able to be in their lives because they bless me so much, being able to help them in any way that I can. So what inspires me, what makes me when I wake up every day in the morning is how can I be better? How can I support them more? Like that's my inspiration, passionate about making a difference in somebody else's life.
So I know we're out of time. We have a mom with one more question.
Just the last question.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Amal. This is for all three of y'all. What was like a challenge y'all had and like what kept y'all going? Like did y'all want to give up at a point in y'all career?
Oh, good question.
That's a big question. There's challenges constantly, whether you're working as a designer for a small brand, a large brand, just the job itself is, I think, hugely challenging, super exciting, and if you're creative, you may be passionate about it, but for me now, my biggest challenge is running a business by myself, learning things on the business side that I wasn't trained to do. So every day there's learning opportunities, but I love being in the position where I can learn. I'm constantly hungry for more knowledge or resources. But there are days that I'm like, what am I doing? I'm trying to do a webinar, and then I'm trying to do social media, and then I'm trying to budget, and then I'm trying to line up another story, and I can't reach them, or technical issues. There are days when I'm just like, oh, I'm exhausted, doing 50 million things as a business owner and juggling all of it. But like Siamanda, when you have that vision and you know the reward, and you can start to see some of the outcome of all your hard work, but that's what keeps me going. So there's always going to be challenges in whatever you do, and just one foot in front of the other and keep going forward. So.
Just briefly, I would say it is important for all of us as a matter of survival. I mean, life is short, time is precious, and the idea of trying to find something that impassions us, something that we care deeply about, to pursue that, but then combining that with recognizing, is there value also to society somehow? So to somehow marry the two together, your passion with what would add value. So that's something that keeps me going, is I care about these things, and I think that there are organizations and individuals who value these things as well.
Challenges are many, but the last question keeps you going, that passion, and you're passionate about what you do. I can tell you that COVID was probably one of the hardest times for us. After when everyone started, the designers we were working with or the brands we were working with, were thinking, okay, where we, took all their manufacturing in a cheaper area. We took all manufacturing back to China because it was faster, and then there was no brick and mortar. They needed to do it online. But we are recovering, and we have learned to, because of how passionate we are about what we do, it helps us going every day. But challenges will be there, I can tell you. But if you're passionate enough and believe in what you do, you'll overcome.
Good question, Mom. Thank you all. We have time for one more question, and then quick answers, please, only because they have class to get to. And then if you have more questions for Siamanda and Michael and Britta, afterwards you can all mingle and ask questions. And then I have two important announcements after this last question, because we have a fashion emergency, a New York Fashion Week show without dressers. So stay in your seats after this question, and then we'll thank each of you. And then,
I will translate.
oh, you come on out? Okay. All right, so this is the last question. Please.
I don't know. I will translate the question from my student Sofia. She asked about, we see a lot of fast fashion, more like an example. We see a lot of fast fashion here, so we hear that you talk about how from the outside you help the sustainability, thank you, in local brands. So can you give me an example when you help from the inside of the USA? not working with people in other place, like a local help to sustain. Oh. You understand? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Do you understand?
She wants to know how you help the fast fashion to be better. Maybe with brands, with process. Yeah, in general, not in your jobs.
Well, I think you can answer because you work with Nike and all
Yeah,
that
I think
stuff.
it's education.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, I think I understand. It's a lot of it is education. Whether you're Nike or an emerging small two-person brand, what's really challenging is, for example, a company like Nike is like a huge ship, right? To change the process and change the system, it has to start here. It might take 3 years before they can actually implement that fabric, or it might take just a huge amount of time. So it's a very slow process. For me, if I'm working with a client, because I'll do client consulting on designs, and I'm a stickler for whatever they're making. I want to know what the fabric is. I want to know how sustainable it is, and I'll just keep advising if they're using some fabric that's cheaper or some, poly blend. I'll just encourage them as much as I can to make those changes. It's slow. It's a slow process, and it's going to take a while. But I think whoever you're working with, just to be an advocate, and stand up. And one quick example, working for a swimwear company, we did an entire collection that was on recyclable polyester, I think it was. And we got all the way through garments. And then at the end, it's too expensive. So all that development and all that work, it didn't price out because the fabric was more expensive. So they dropped the whole thing. And we spent months, So it's a challenge, it's a process. Start internally, influence your team wherever you can. And just, I think if each one of us kind of speaks up and tries to at least if it's a button or part of the fabric, just something, trying to implement that and get that into your process. And
yeah, I'll add like for the local company, if you are thinking, because you can still do fast fashion, implementing those sustainability elements, for example, like upcycling. Like I know an organization like Custom Collaborative that collects all this stock fabric, like fabrics that are being wasted. Use that, because that could be your story. You can still make fast fashion out of that and tell the story of, this material is not new, it's refurbished, recycled, upcycled, whatever. So there's dead stock is what they call it. So I think there are other elements of sustainability other than slow fashion. You can do fast fashion and use those other those other elements that surround sustainability in fashion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Britta, Michael, and Siamanda. Remember, I know there are more questions. You can hang out and ask questions to Siamanda, Michael, and Britta. But first, I want to just give 2 announcements before we say our final words, please. We do have that fashion emergency I just talked about. An email came in from Fashion and Arts Exchange out of Harlem. And, the Epperson Show, woohoo! So Epperson, you can look them up if you don't know them, are having their fall 25, winter 26 show in Chelsea at St. Peter's, which is on the 300 block of West 20th between 9th and 10th on the south side of the block. 2 o'clock for dressers. They are desperate for dressers. You do need to wear all black. No jeans with holes. Also, they're looking for ushers. That's a 4 o'clock call time. The show is at 5. We all know that you work for hours for a 15, 20-minute show, so you'll probably be out of there after packing up by about 6. Light snacks will be there. So if you are interested, see me in room 602 after, or go up to Jasmine on the 5th floor. We'll give you the contact. It's Miss Gwen, good friend of Berkeley and DeAndre and mine. So it's a good show though. So if you want to dress, let us know. Also, all are welcome after this. hang out, ask questions, and then at 2 o'clock, come on up to the 6th floor. They just fixed the elevator, so it won't take as long as it did to come down. And the UN has asked Berkeley College to create a piece of the Global Peace Flag in partnership with Fashioning for Environmental and Social Justice, which is an organization out of the UN run by Britta, the fashion designer. And you each can make a quilt square on dead stock fabric saved from incineration from our fashion industry. We have fabric from American Eagle, we have fabric from Gap, from Steve Madden, from Mara Hoffman, and many others that are here. We've cut them into 12 by 12 squares. Paint your message to world leaders and what you wish for this world, towards equity and justice and love for all. And then they will all be stitched together and hung on the White House lawn over the 3-day Memorial Day weekend. It should be an apolitical message, please. We're going for like that we want love and etc., as opposed to what I know some of my students might be thinking. So, but we want to give positive messages, or maybe it's not positive, but it's what you want for the world. So, in speaking for what you want for the world, thank you for sharing these stories today. You're all such multifaceted people with such multifaceted stories, so remember to tell someone your story today and connect with them. So thank you so much, Siamanda and Michael and Britta. And if you could just each take a second to tell people how to reach out to you or find you on LinkedIn or whatnot in case they're interested. And just like a final word each, and then also, you'll bring up the names. And then Amal has something for you that is from all of us in the fashion department. So take it away as your final words. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to me. I've really enjoyed sharing my story with you. My advice is follow your passion, find what you like best, what makes you wake up in the morning and feel good about yourself. And you can reach me anytime. I'm always available on LinkedIn, Instagram, Baby Ravi collection, which I think you'll see on the line. You can just text me anytime. I'm always so excited to support, empower, and to just help in any way I can. Thank you.
I have a very unusual name, so if you go online, type in Michael Jordan, I should come up right away, okay? Or I have business cards, okay? I could put them on a seat over here, okay, if you like a card and my contact information.
Gosh. You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Britta Cabanos. Also, my website is insidefashiondesign.com, and through there you can email me directly. It comes to me directly. Words of advice, I guess, building on what Siamanda said, like find what drives you. And in the fashion industry, you'll probably go through many jobs that you do not like very much. There was so many jobs that I wanted to quit for 2 years. And I just kept saying, one day I'm gonna quit. And things evolve. It will constantly evolve. Stay in that job if you have to. Learn as much as you can. Being an employee is free education. You know, even if it's not exactly what you want to do, learn as much as you can anyway, because you're going to take that with you as you progress through your career. And so that would be my advice. Just be patient, keep going, just stay strong. Oh, can I add one more thing? Community. I know that's kind of a buzzword these days, but when I was a younger designer, I didn't feel like I had support or a place to go. It's a very competitive industry, so find your group, find your whether it's coworkers or find some sort of support group, find your own little community, and even if it's just a couple people that are there for you when you had the worst day ever, trying to work in your job. So I think that's so important today. So that would be my words of wisdom.
I forgot to share a message.
Yes.
Prove your impact.
There you go.
Okay? No BS. Evidence. Okay? Concrete, credible evidence. Okay?
Thank you, everybody, for coming.